Daytona. About 5 miles away from the beach is the Daytona International Speedway, and that's where we are for the second practice for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, presented by Toyota. As you see, an absolutely beautiful day here today. Temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. Lots of sunshine, and it is just spectacular. We're glad to be here for practice number 2, practice 2 of 3, along with Michael Waltrip, Phil Parsons. I'm Vince Welch. Saw a pretty entertaining first practice, lasted 80 minutes and plenty of action. What was your takeaway from practice 1, Mike?
Well, Vince, I think I saw about everything I needed to see to get ready for this race, especially if I'm a veteran. You can see Matt Crafton leading this pack here. This pack has got veterans and rookies scattered throughout it. They have to get along together. You want to make sure your truck is stable, and you can see as they go across the start-finish line there, pretty good-looking group. But watch this 2 truck of Cody Coughlin as he gets down into turn 3. He starts to wiggle a little bit, Bill.
Yeah, Matt Crafton is right behind him. And after this practice session, we caught a glimpse of Matt going over and talking to Cody Coughlin. They were teammates at ThorSport last year. Cody moved on to GMS Racing, and Matt's just trying to help Cody. As you mentioned, we're all in this together. We got to get towards the end of the race here before we can decide who's going to win. And Matt's just trying to help Cody right there know that his truck was wiggling a little bit. Maybe he got a little bit too close to that truck on the inside. Just something to be careful with.
And Vince, the way that works is Matt Crafton's a veteran. He's seen it all. And maybe Cody Coughlin isn't quite familiar with exactly how that truck should feel in the draft. Matt goes over and says, tell your crew chief, you're a little bit wobbly out there, and we need to get that figured out.
That's not the way it's supposed to feel, just so you understand that. Well, we'll see if they've tightened that up a little bit here in this second practice session. We'll take care of it from upstairs, and down in the garage area, it's Alan Cavana.
Hey Vince, good to be back. You know, the second practice here at Daytona, the question is always to draft or not to draft. The GMS trucks, Johnny Sauter included, they will be out there in a pack. At least that's what they want to do. They think there's a lot to learn. Matt Crafton, who we just saw out there in the first practice, leading the pack, they say they're done drafting. Ben Rhodes, his teammate, though, he wants to get out there and learn a little bit more. So there is a risk versus reward element to all of this. You can learn a lot about what they may do tomorrow night.
On board with Johnny Sauter. You see that 2 truck just ahead of him. That's what we were just talking about a moment ago. The Jegs machine of Cody Coughlin.
And he's doing Vince, he's doing his job there too. You want to paint that yellow line. You want that truck to be exactly against that yellow line on the back straightaway. Phil, if you don't do that, somebody will get their nose in there and put you out in the middle. That can be no man's land. And you're talking about a truck that doesn't handle well. You get them passing you on both sides. These things are a handful.
Right now, Cody Coughlin's lined up behind his teammate and veteran Johnny Sauter. Johnny's the only former winner here at Daytona in the Truck Series in this race, and he's won this race twice. So if you're going to follow somebody and learn from somebody, Johnny's a good guy to do it.
Johnny Sauter and our friend Todd Bodine, the only winners of the truck race on multiple occasions here at Daytona. Each have done it twice.
See them on the outside trying to get a little bit of momentum going here. That's the 13 of Myatt Snyder they're trying to move around. Looks like they didn't do a whole bunch of gaining. They actually lost the draft. Now you see them about 8 or 12 truck lanes back. Let's see if they can get lined up and maybe catch that front pack as Ben Rhodes in the 41 truck jumps to the outside of Chris Fontaine. Chris is in that yellow and blue truck.
Phil, you saw that truck as he jumped to the outside. It looked like Ben had to make a little bit of a correction, move his truck around a little bit, and when you move that wheel, these things can get really darty and dicey for the trucks. You can see them 3 wide down into turn 1. Well, this is fun stuff for us to watch, but if you're a crew chief or a spotter, sometimes you don't like what you see. You want these guys to get back to the garage area and take care of that truck.
You remember one lap ago when I said Johnny Sauter and Cody Coughlin actually lost a little ground?
Top of 3.
Well, Johnny's right up there in the middle of them now.
3. Clear the 24, clear 1. Right on the stripe here, you got some on the stripe.
That's Terry Cook, spotter for Cody Coughlin, letting him know what's going on. Spotters have become so valuable in this type of racing especially.
There's David Gilliland in that yellow number 4 that you saw Sauter moving by on that onboard camera.
Phil, this practice session reminds me of what sitting through a race here at Daytona is like from the booth. We've been out there, we've raced on this track many a times, but I've never been more nervous than sitting up here watching these guys just try to survive to the race here at Daytona. Now there's the spotters, and you heard you've got one inside. There's two inside.
Clear.
He's shouting that from nearly a half a mile away as Johnny Sauter dives to the bottom and takes the lead. I mean, that's when a driver...
Dude, that thing's pretty wicked nice.
Ooh, I like that. He's cheering on Johnny Sauter.
Half back.
But Phil, my point is the driver uses that information, but you better make the last decision you're going to make on your own, making sure that when your spotter says clear, that he has a view that allows him to give you that direction.
And the encouragement from the spotter stand in regards to Johnny Sauter, the fact that Sauter was in the front, fell back, and then drove it right back to the front again. That's encouraging indeed.
And if I read between the lines, his spotter was saying, let's stop, Johnny.
Exactly.
This truck is awesome, and we are going to be fast tomorrow night. Let's take care of that baby.
Tab Boyd, the spotter for Johnny Sauter. He's certainly been around a long time, long enough to know what looks good and what doesn't. And he was telling his driver, I think you're in pretty good shape for tomorrow night. Brian Doza in the 28, a little bit of a moment.
Brian was fast in that first practice session. He was up in the top 5, and Jim Rosenblum's number 28 truck.
Right-hand side of the screen.
See him right down on the bottom. Got a little bit loose, and that came up off the double yellow line. Fortunately, he caught it. This is from Cody Coughlin's
If you want it.
Jags on board.
Clear low if you want it.
Did he maybe hit the apron with the left sides, Michael?
I think so. And Phil, we talked about this earlier. When you hit the apron with the left sides, it's going to disrupt your truck. It's going to make it want to get loose. Well, then the driver corrects the wheel to fight against.
You have to
fight against that, and then you get to wobbling. And that's sometimes called the
high-speed wobble.
Yeah, hospital hop too. It's been called before. And that's where you're liable to wind up if you don't correct it correctly.
There's the 4 truck. That's David Gilliland. The 24, Justin Haley riding on board with the 2. That's Cody Coughlin. The 41 there on the outside, Ben Rhodes. The 25 up top, Dalton Sargent that you saw.
Everything about this is just tense. From the spotters to the crew chiefs, these drivers, it's a necessary evil though, Vince, especially if you're a rookie. You got to get out there and make sure that you've got something you can race these boys with.
You know, I'm fine with you talking to me constantly. Clear around, lines on your inside, clear on the outside. The line starts moving, there's a hole coming up, 2 back, 1 back, all right, drop down now. Stuff like that, where it's constant communication. Even though it's just practice and we're not going hard, it's just good for me to get in the habit of it, you know what I mean?
I think good communication. Yeah, it's good communication too, I think, between Ben Rhodes and his spotter. Obviously working together for the first time and letting his spotter know exactly what he wants. And that's something that's going to pay off for them potentially tomorrow night. Second practice for the trucks at Daytona. NASCAR Camping World Truck Series practice at Daytona, presented by Toyota. Early stages of this second practice, still just under 45 minutes remaining, so plenty of time to get things accomplished, and we still have one final practice yet this afternoon, about 4:30 Eastern.
Guys, you see the speeds left side of our screen. Ben Rhodes at almost 193 miles an hour. That's almost exactly the fast speed that we saw last year in practice. So many things have changed here. Obviously, the new NT1 engines and the majority of these trucks, including Ben Rhodes' green and white Alpha Energy Solutions truck, and the speeds are the same.
It's interesting here as these 3, Nemechek and the 51 of Davis, and then you also saw the 25 of Dalton Sargent practicing getting off turn 4 onto pit road.
And that's going to be critical tomorrow evening to make sure you do that properly. Phil, almost every race it seems, when these guys try to make a green flag pit stop off of turn 4, somebody won't get the message and somebody will get turned around. You need to run wide open off turn 4. That's possible in these trucks because they stop so well with the big cab on them. Run wide open off 4 and get over to the left off the track as quickly as you can so that you can get low and don't cause an accident. That's what we saw there. Those guys come into pit road to figure out how far they could run wide open before they started the braking process. And then with Sargent, he went all the way to his box and stopped. Had a pit crew guy down there doing that.
And then you're not done there. You got to make sure that you get stopped on time. You can't overshoot your pit, and then you can't speed on the way out of pit road. These guys' work doesn't stop when the caution comes out and they're going to make a pit stop, whether it's and possibly could be under green as well.
Yeah, it's tough enough on the racetrack. You don't want to have an accident off the racetrack trying to get to pit road, which we saw a couple of years ago. A big pile up as they were exiting turn 4 trying to get onto pit road back in 2015. Let's check in downstairs with Alec Cavana.
Yeah, only a few laps for Brett Moffitt in this second practice. Is that more about survival and keeping this thing in one piece?
Yeah, I think if history repeats itself, we need to have our best bullet in the chamber when the start of this race happens. And still working a little bit on single truck speed. We're off on that a little bit from where we need to be, but our Tundra drafts really well, and the guys are working hard to try to get us to qualify a little bit better. But we don't know what we have until tomorrow. So gonna work on it a little bit more. We might do one more run, maybe not, but we're happy with how it drafts, and just looking forward to tomorrow.
You had a rough start to the day coming out onto the track. What happened there? Because we saw you spin.
I don't know. I don't even know, to be honest. I don't know if we ran something over. The right rear was flat when we got back. I don't know if we ran something over or not, or if it was just a long off season. So I don't know. I don't need.
Yeah, he doesn't want to see it. At least you can smile about it, though. A lot of smiling for you, though. This deal came together, though, pretty late in the season. How has it been so far? Because it came together pretty late in the offseason.
It's been really good. I've worked with many of these guys before, crew chief Scott Zeppedelli and Mike Ricci, the general manager, and Shiggy himself. I ran the K&N East Series for him for a few years. So it's kind of reunited with a bunch of old people, and they're all really quality employees and really quality workers. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity, and I know we have the stuff to be able to go win races and try to fight for a championship here.
Brett Moffitt has done it before, guys.
Yes, and that team did an outstanding job last year. Scott Zeppedelli to the crew chief, and there you see Mike Ricci there in the grayish colored shirt. They ran Ryan Truex as their driver a season ago. Didn't get to victory lane, but they were all around it.
I'm not sure how happy they'll be with him calling them a bunch of old people. But anyway,
you could see Sargent there slipping to pit road. That's something you have to be careful with too, Vince, is flat spotting your tires. A lot of guys will just get 2 tires, so you got to be watching your sliding.
Here's what we were talking about a couple of years ago, and they were trying to get to pit road all together, and you see it just takes one person to mess up.
You see that was a caution clock we had in play 2 years ago, and you had to get to pit road before that caution clock would run out. And obviously they got to pit road before then. Some of them sideways, some of them into the wall, but most of them got there.
Yeah, it's just really difficult, Bill. This track is fairly narrow. When you exit the corner, if you try to start getting onto pit road, it backs up. You can't really see through the other trucks. You need critically, the conversation between the spotter and the driver is crucial in those times.
And they have to communicate to the other spotters as well. They have to wave their arm up on the spotter stand saying, I'm pitting this lap, I'm pitting this lap.
I think that you made an interesting point, Mike. How difficult is it if you're behind a truck? How difficult is it for you to see ahead?
You can't tell what's happening. All of a sudden there's a guy, his tailgate gets bigger in your lap, and next thing you know, you're spinning around.
Dalton Sargent continuing to work on it. Now he's just going to go ahead and take it to the garage where Bobby Gerhardt and company sit. Practice for the trucks at Daytona. Daytona continues.
See Matt Crafton, we're going to ride along with him in his visor cam. The thing that I'm amazed at, Michael, is how little these guys turn the steering wheel. Now, I know you've raced lately. You raced here at Daytona in the 500 last year. Back in the day, we had so much slower steering boxes. We would turn the wheel probably till his right hand would be past 12 o'clock. Just to get through these corners, and Matt's only turning that thing about 15 degrees.
Yeah, that's why I was so thankful I got to race last year, because it was just one last time to feel the progress we've made in the setups of these vehicles. Like you said, really sloppy steering back in the day, and now these things set down and almost drive like a go-kart. The steering is that quick, and that's why you see all the bobbling and wiggling when these guys are in traffic. You get just a little bit nervous and overcorrect, your truck is going to go crazy on you.
The wheels turn. Any movement to the steering wheel, before we could turn the steering wheel half around and it wouldn't really turn much.
And they're getting around there at better than 190 miles per hour. The top speed so far in this practice, Ben Rhodes at 192 plus, almost 193 miles per hour. There was Crafton's teammate. Grant Enfinger had the fastest lap in the first practice session.
What a great season Matt had. I mean, I'm sorry, Grant had last year. Didn't make the playoffs, but man, he came close and had some really, really good runs. Just kept piling up top 5s and top 10s. Really looked for a lot out of this truck this year. Jeff Hensley's back on board as crew chief. Jeff with so much experience here in NASCAR, so really look for Grant to be a contender here this year.
9 top 5 finishes for Infinger last year, and really had that stretch in the early part of late spring, early summer. 4 straight top 5s and 5 out of a 6 race stretch.
We know he's Granson winner in this series. He won at Talladega year before last, running a limited schedule.
Got to win at his home track. That's pretty awesome to be able to pull into victory lane and know all your fans and friends and family are up in the stands cheering you on. What a great feeling.
You see that ThorSport graphic on the left-hand side of your screen. Those are the 4 drivers that make up the ThorSport contingent this year. New additions, or a new addition, I should say, Myatt Snyder.
And, you know, Vince, at the top of the day, you talked about all the changes that we were going through in the Truck Series. A big change for this organization, changing manufacturers. Phil, how do you perceive their opportunity early in the season to win with that change?
I think it would be different, Michael, if they have changed everything. But everybody has the new NT1 engine, so that's what they put in these Fords. I talked to Junior Joyner. He said it really was a pretty simple change, just the nose of that truck and the hood. And they feel like they're in as good a shape as they've ever been. Very optimistic. So I don't think we're going to notice a blip for that ThorSport bunch changing over to Ford.
Let's go downstairs, check in with Alan.
And not only the first start at Daytona ever for Spencer Davis, it's the first start ever in the Truck Series, and you're at Daytona and you're out there drafting. What is the biggest learning curve for you?
You know, it's definitely the drafting. You know, everyone wasn't kidding when they're talking about how big the Aramuzi around. So luckily I had a bunch of help from people like Matt Crafton and you know, people like Kel Gale and everyone that's just run Truck Series, Austin Terrio. You know, I got a lot of help from them, which was very nice. And you know, you don't experience till you get out there in it, you know, and that's what my crew chief, Mike Hillman Jr. is trying to get me to do, trying to get me out there in the draft and feel what the truck does when someone pushes air on you or if you're passing someone. So, you know, definitely out there is the biggest experience and help I've had so far.
There's not much practice time, but a lot of this is about trust when it comes to drafting. How do you make other drivers trust you?
You know, just going out there and not being a squirrel, I guess you could say, everyone talks, being, you know, holding a steady wheel and, you know, not acting out there like you're trying to race everyone in practice. And, you know, just the biggest deal from what I've heard about veteran drivers is, you know, when they see a rookie that's holding a nice steady wheel and isn't over the place trying to make something happen in practice, you know, they tend to know they can trust that guy a lot more. So that's something I've definitely put into play in practice. You know, of course, when you're trying to turn a fast lap, you're trying to be aggressive, but, you know, it's practice. You don't want to put no one else in harm's way.
Don't be a squirrel. That's good advice for drafting.
Did you ever accomplish that? Did you get that accomplished, the not being a squirrel, Mike?
That's marginal. Marginal.
We love you, though.
Yeah.
We love you anyway.
That's why I'm up here now.
Back at Daytona, NASCAR Camping World Truck Series practice presented by Toyota. We're getting the feel for the draft, starting to see some of those trucks that maybe weren't quite as active in the draft in the first practice, getting a little more so involved here in the second practice. But boy, you want to be careful, because from a backup standpoint, none of these teams want to have to go to a backup truck, so you cannot afford a mistake during these drafting sessions.
Chris Fontaine, Michael, on the outside, that blue and yellow truck leads us back. He's 6th quickest in this practice session. Somebody we've talked about always runs extremely well here in Talladega.
The blue truck with the red numbers there at the point, that's Stuart Friesen. There's Fontaine on the outside lane in that 47, and right behind him the 87 of Joe Nemechek.
You can see the 21 of Johnny Sauter here pushing Cody Coughlin. Let's just see from this view how this 2-truck looks. Done a nice job in this session, Phil. I think has Coughlin putting himself in on the outside, on the inside, moving around, understanding how that air is going to affect his truck. Looks smooth here.
Yeah, that's one thing we talked about in these practice sessions. You have to try to put your truck in every possible scenario that you're going to see. It's impossible to put them 3 wide, 10 rows deep in practice, but you try to figure out what else you can come across and see if you can put yourself in that position.
Teammates, Johnny Sauter on board with him, and the 2 of Cody Coughlin, as Coughlin has moved over to GMS this season.
And Coughlin just flared up there on purpose, let his teammate go to the bottom, moving around in the draft like we talked earlier, making sure he can feel and experience every position that he might find himself in tomorrow night.
And with that GMS team, as you see there on the left-hand side of your screen, with Justin Haley, Johnny Sauter, Cody Coughlin, Dalton Sargent, I mean, there's no question this team Sauter is the leader of this team from a performance standpoint, a veteran, a former champion. And but getting those other 3 young drivers up near his level has got to be a big goal for this GMS team. Not just have one guy that's a championship contender, but get those 3 young guys up there to be playoff caliber performers as well.
And that has to be priority number 1 for GMS Racing. Just like with Matt Crafton at ThorSport, I think you have to have that anchor, like a Johnny Sauter or a Matt Crafton, so you can evaluate your equipment. I mean, if you go to the racetrack and you have 3 or 4 young drivers and they're not running very well, you say, well, is it the drivers or is it our equipment? When you have somebody like Johnny Sauter or Matt Crafton, you know that they're always going to be towards the top of the board and they can get out whatever the equipment has. If they're struggling too, then you've got a problem.
Alan?
That's what it's all about, getting experience for these young drivers, especially at GMS. The team wanting Dalton Sargent to get out there, get experience in the draft. They had him behind different well-known plate racers like Parker Kligerman, people who know how to do this type of racing, and certainly that includes a lot of coaching over the radio.
Obviously, when Johnny went around y'all, that's what he used, the slingshot all the way around on outside if he was the guy that did it. So I feel good you got all the tools to go race right there. And obviously you could be aggressive in practice, but it doesn't pay anything. And, I just want you to have all the tools, experience it. And that's the tough thing about being a race car driver, right? For deciding when to go and when not to.
And you can hear the advice they're giving him. Watch and learn, but he's doing it at nearly 200 miles per hour. It's his first start at Daytona. Luckily for him, he's got some veteran crew chief up on the box, making the calls. Doug Randolph coming over to GMS. A lot of good experience in his ear.
Yeah, Doug Randolph came over from Brad Keselowski Racing a year ago.
Carried Austin Cindric to a great season. Won the race in Canada on the road course and got into the playoffs and made it to the very last race and ended up finishing 3rd in our championship.
Less than 30 minutes remaining here in practice number 2 for the Camping World Truck Series at Daytona. NASCAR Camping World Truck Series practice from Daytona, presented by Toyota. Oh, what a beautiful day it is here in Florida. You see it's a mix of sun and clouds, temperature in the upper 70s, just a slight breeze. Just the way it should be here in Florida this time
I think
of year.
all weekend, right? The weather's supposed to be just perfect conditions for the greatest sporting event of the whole year in my eyes. Daytona is so special. The Daytona 500 Sunday afternoon, the 60th running of that great race. Live on Fox. All those words just send tingles up my spine knowing what lays ahead for us this weekend.
There's a guy that knows how to win at Daytona, Bobby Gerhart, driving that Lucas Oil Silverado. Bobby's won the ARCA race here
8 times?
8 times,
Yep.
yeah. Not 5, 6, 8 different times.
Once you won it 4 or 5, you've made a statement. When you win at 8, you're kind of showing off at that point.
I think so too. Bobby had a good run going here the other night, and he said at the last restart he was in pretty good position up around the top 5, and he said they dropped the green flag for the restart, and he said his car wouldn't go. Didn't know what happened. They were going to analyze it when they got back home, but
I thought you were going to tell me he was caught up in an accident.
No, he was running. He was fine. Well, he was caught up in an accident earlier, but he was in good shape for a great finish, and unfortunately it didn't get to the end.
There's a good look at the 15, Robbie Lyons.
Robbie's another truck out of Premium Motorsports, Jay Robinson stable. Wendell Chavis will be teammates to Robbie. Robbie ran a couple races toward the end of the year and really had some pretty good runs. Finished 12th at Phoenix and had a lot better run going at Homestead. Ended up finishing 24th, but a great debut with that 12th place finish at Phoenix.
And that's what you look for when a guy shows up like Robbie, and you can put that truck ahead of where you've seen his peers run before in it, or maybe even his teammates. That was a great finish for him, and it makes you really look forward to seeing what the team can produce in 2018.
Exactly.
Big for him. He's making his first start ever at Daytona, and he's a Floridian from Seminole, Florida. Always a little more special when you're racing in your home state. Family and friends making the trip to see you do your thing.
Just like Michael was talking about when Grant Enfinger won at Talladega in his home state, home game for him.
That 49 truck and the 15 from Jay Robinson's stables are both beautiful trucks too. You can tell they've got the type of body. The lines on them make you believe that a lot of work has gone into tuning those trucks in the off season. This could be a team that really takes advantage of this new engine, if they get that under the hood and run up to its standards, they could be contending for top fives.
Yeah, a lot of experience too. Brian Keselowski and Scott Eggleston both over there, crew chiefs on those 2 trucks.
Scott Eggleston, Daytona 500 winning crew chief.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about the new engine. For those that may be just joining us, there is a new engine option in NASCAR. Not mandatory, but most of the teams are running it. The NT1 stands for NASCAR Trucks 1.
Yeah, it's really essentially the same engine that the ARCA Racing Series has been running for 3 years, and it's a cost-saving measure. These guys are looking at, for a full-time team, I was talking to one of the team managers yesterday, and they're looking at saving maybe $250,000 to $300,000 this year as they change over to that NT1. And he said they feel like they'll save $400,000 to $500,000 next year once they have the inventory and they're able just to maintain those engines. So I think it's something that the Truck Series desperately needs, and I think that's going to bring the competition closer together. We've talked about it, Michael. I think, you know, Austin Hill in that 02 truck, or this 20 truck of Scott Legacy, teammates for Tyler Young, they know when they bolt that engine under the hood, they have the exact same engine as all the GMS trucks, and, you know, all the ThorSport trucks.
And that builds confidence in the driver. He looks under the hood, he's got the same thing the truck that won last week has under the hood. You know that you have what it takes power-wise to go get the job done. I'm a big fan of anything that the race fans can't really see. The more those things are alike, then it brings out the people, the drivers, the crew chief, how they tune those parts and pieces. I applaud NASCAR for implementing the new engine in the Truck Series, and I look forward to watching it this year, seeing who's able to take advantage of it the best.
Back downstairs, check in with Alan.
John Hunter Nemechek, not only out of his driver's suit, I caught him putting decals on his truck. So is that a sign you're pretty confident with what you have?
Yeah, most definitely. My guys have brought me a great Fleet Wing DAB constructed Chevy Silverado this weekend. Nimco Motorsports guys always work hard, so I'm looking forward to getting in the race tomorrow night. I feel very confident in our truck and our crew, working with a new spotter up on the spotter stand this year, so it's definitely taking some getting used to, but I feel confident in the draft, and that's really the only thing that matters. We opted not to do a single car run and just focus on draft speed, so hopefully it works out well.
We won't see you full-time in the series this year. Does that change the effort at all, especially here at Daytona?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
Well, we won't see you this year full-time in the series. Does that change the effort here at Daytona?
I wouldn't say it changes the effort. I mean, we're still going to go out and try and win as many races as we can. We're not running for points this year, so we have really nothing to lose. So we may put ourselves in a position that we didn't have to in previous times. But who knows? I'm really looking forward to getting this thing out there tomorrow night, hopefully qualifying up front and staying there.
Nothing to lose and a lot of confidence.
Well, he's certainly one you're going to have to deal with, I think, in regards to who's going to win this race. I wouldn't be surprised to see John Hunter Nemechek right there at the front. He'll make his Xfinity Series debut next week at Atlanta for Chip Ganassi. Out of the ThorSport Racing Garage. Fastest in that first practice.
Putting in a qualifying run here, Vince. His fastest speed in this session.
49.52, is that what it says?
Yeah,
there, Michael?
and the last time by 49.73, so lost a little bit of speed.
A couple tenths of a second. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but a couple tenths of a second is quite a bit.
And whatever that team changed or the adjustment they made, they know that that was not good. So let's undo that and try something else if we want a little more speed in qualifying. The main thing is a balance. Just be okay in qualifying. Make sure that baby's ready to draft tomorrow night.
Josh Rayom in the 33.
Josh had a best of 16th last year, a couple times. Looks like he ran about 12, 14 races.
Another truck walking around in the garage area that I looked on and said, this baby looks fast. I mean, it looks like it can get up there and get the job done. And so many different trucks this season, in my eyes, have a better shot at being competitive. I think we've upped the competition level in the Truck Series, and I didn't even know that was possible with all the great racing we saw last year.
And I think some of that is accredited to the point you made before the break and talking about the introduction of the NT1. The competition level is going to be greater because there are more people racing, for the most part, with the same equipment.
And then that's when the driver and the crew chief and the engineers, they take those parts and pieces, the tools that they have, and they tweak and tune, and they put the human element into these trucks. And that's why these races are so entertaining to watch.
And the pit stops will be even more important this year with the changes that they've made down there on pit road. We'll touch on here in just a bit. You're watching the 18 of Noah Gragson, one of the championship favorites this year. Of course, driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports and working with crew chief Rudy Fugle. Anytime you work with Rudy Fugle, I think you got to feel like you're a championship contender.
Yeah, and
if not the favorite.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think the thing they had going together with he and Marcus Richmond as crew chief last year, I think they would have been a contender, whichever one of the KBM trucks he would have got in. Had that big win at Martinsville last year, so competitive.
Really saw him come into his own in that second half of the season a year ago.
Struggled a little bit early on, admittedly.
Coming back to Daytona after the good look at the conversation there between Kyle Busch, the team owner, and Rudy Fugle, his crew chief. And it goes from Kyle and trickles down. He is very hands-on in that organization, but it all runs at the shop anyway through Rudy Fugle. I mean, they have multiple crew chiefs there, but Rudy is the leader of that camp. There's no question.
But Rudy's talked about every competition meeting Kyle is in. He's certainly hands-on ownership here in the truck series, and it's pretty amazing what he's really done with KBM over the years, not to mention what he's done as a driver. Even before he's formed his own team, he's got 49 wins now, knocking on the door of Ron Hornaday's record of 51, but quite amazing what he's done since he formed that KBM team.
Kyle will run a handful of races for his group this season, beginning next week at Atlanta.
That'll check the competition for tough, won't it? Make sure that everybody's on their game. I just, at the risk of hacking Matt Kraft and Johnny Sauter, some of our veterans, off, I just feel like my pick early in the year to be the champion is Noah Gragson.
Yeah.
I just saw a lot out of that young man last year, and I think that team, obviously very strong. Look for him to be one of the favorites this year.
The wind just seems kind of shifty to me, because now it seems more from east to west. Yeah, 10-4 when we first started, it wasn't near as gusty either. It was from 3 to the tri-oval, but it keeps switching back to 3 to 1 to back to the tri-oval. It's kind of moving around, so you'll get some help down the back, but it's going to hurt our back stretch. It's going to hurt us, but down the front might help us a little bit.
It was Junior Joyner, the first voice you heard, Crafton's crew chief, and then their spotter, Stevie Reeves.
Yeah, Florida's like that. The wind will shift on you, and like every time I hit my golf ball, it seems like it's right into the teeth of that wind.
The wind's always blowing to the right?
What if it, do they usually blow it out of bounds?
I mean, it's just a tough wind down here in Florida.
No matter what hole he's on, it's always blowing to the right.
Yeah.
But how about addressing the significance of the wind and why it matters where it's blowing?
Vince, you could miss this pole by 1,000th of a second.
Doing it again. I see nothing on the gauges. Voltage is good. Pressures are fine. Okay, yeah, let's come in. What's your water temperature?
Wait.
210.
Wait.
I just reset the gauges. It's like when I get really close, suddenly I just die at the backstretch.
What could that be, Phil? He doesn't have the performance under the hood, but he's struggling explaining exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, he said his gauges are fine. So that's one nice thing about the new NT1. The Ilmore technicians can plug into a laptop and download that information and see what it says. Maybe they can see something on the computer from the engine control unit that would tell them maybe what's going wrong.
So that was Parker Kligerman. While they check on that situation, let's check in with Alan, who's with the fastest man in town so far, Ben Rhodes.
Yeah, it was funny. Before practice, I asked Ben Rhodes if you can look at the practice sheet, if that meant anything. And he said, nah. And now that you're the fastest truck, does it mean anything?
Well, it means something to me. But no, I mean, in all honesty, people lag back to get really fast times. I know that I was pushing the 24, so he's second. And we had a really fast run going. But honestly, our number 41 Alpha G Solutions Ford F-150s, it's really quick. This is the happiest I've ever been at Daytona, or any super speedway for that matter. So I'm really glad that we're with Ford. I mean, the truck has a ton of speed. do feel like this could be the race that, maybe we can pull off a win. But, of course, you have to have some good luck for that to happen.
You say you're the happiest you've ever been. Is that the car or the truck, or is that you, the driver?
I think it's the truck. I think we got a lot of speed. I think it's Ford, honestly. I think it's Ford. I don't want to give any credit to myself because, I feel like I'm a little bit smarter driver than I had been in years past. But certainly, ThorSport Racing Ford, they've brought a really good piece to the track this year.
A late change to Ford in the offseason is paying off.
Well, and I think Ben Rhodes makes a good point, too, about when he referenced himself being smarter, just the experience of the year he had last year. It'd be disappointing if he didn't feel smarter at this stage
and
a year later.
We talked about it earlier. We saw that last year. We saw the maturity in Ben Rhodes. He's always had the speed, but last year he was able to parlay that speed into some good finishes and a win.
I like when the 20-year-old said he just feels smarter than he did in years past. How valuable is that to be that young and have that much experience?
And it helps when you've got a crew chief like Eddie Triconis. He's pretty on the ball as well. Final minutes of truck practice coming up. A few minutes remaining here in this second practice for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. And remember, there is a final practice for the trucks coming up in a little more than an hour, 4:30 Eastern time.
Good shot of Wendell Javits coming down the back straightaway, the Georgia dirt racer, who's transitioned nicely into the truck series.
So consistent last year, Michael. Every time you look up, he's somewhere between that 15th and 20th positions. That equipment really looks nice, and we know Wendell has aspirations of moving that needle up a little bit.
Brian Keselowski working with Chavis. Of course, Brad's brother handling a crew chief role. We saw Parker Kligerman having some issues a short while ago. Let's see if they figure that out. He's with Allen.
Parker Kligerman, always a threat, especially here on the restrictor plate tracks, but having some issues on the backstretch. What's going on?
Well, it's I'm not sure it's issues yet, but we've got these new engines here this weekend, and we're all trying to learn them a little bit and just trying to figure it out. And there's definitely big differences in the way they get runs and then the way they kind of take away a run a little bit and how much time it takes for it to re-spool. But that last run there, we wanted to just draft a little bit to find out a little bit more about the handling, and we had it like basically losing power at the end of the straightaway. So we're gonna have to figure that one out. Just go look at the data of the Ilmor guys. These guys do great motors. I've been with Ilmor throughout my career. I actually raced USAC midgets for them and developed their USAC midget motor, so it feels like coming home to being an Ilmor motor. But we just got to figure out what's going on there and get it turned around, because I think we've got a great truck. This is the same truck from Talladega, just switched to Chevy. So if we get the Chevy Silverado to be as fast as that one in Talladega, I think we can go win this race.
A lot of people point to you as one of the better drafters out there. They want to follow you. They want to see what you're doing. What makes you so good at this?
Stupidity, probably. I just don't know any better. I think it's one of those things where it's a confidence game. It's a mental game. You see the guys who are really good at super speedways at the top level that, enjoy going there. They like the homework. They like, all the chess game aspect of it and trying to outsmart their competitors. And I think, I find myself liking a lot of those things. And it takes homework. These races, I believe more than any other, come down to single little decisions that you make in split-second times. And if you do your homework, those decisions will come more naturally. So we did some good drafting there at the beginning of this practice and felt like I was doing some things I hadn't done in a truck before, like blocking lanes. So that probably won't work in the race, but I think, it comes down to confidence. I just like coming here. I enjoy this type of racing, and I find it very fun. And so that kind of translates to just going out there and making stupid moves, which turn out to be good moves.
He has a few plate racing trophies, a lot of confidence too.
Just once when a driver is asked, how do you do it? Just once I want to hear him say, I am just so talented. I'm so good that that's what I do. That's why I'm at the level I'm at. Are you not paying attention?
That's exactly where Ricky Bobby was. He was better than everybody else, and
I know you believe it. I know you do.
Well, when I would come to Daytona and Talladega back in the day, I had a quiet confidence about me. It felt so good to be coming somewhere where that you're going to have a really good shot at winning the race. And there was times throughout my career where I felt that way, and you really didn't want to say anything because you just felt so good that you didn't think you needed to tell anybody how good you were. You were going to show everybody how good you were.
But it's also, Vince, a nice feeling when you pull out on pit road and when drafting practice. and everyone lines up behind you. You know, they want to find that car or that truck you're in and run with you because they know you're one of the best.
And Parker has that reputation.
Yeah.
The job he's done on these plate tracks, he's taken that 75 truck and driven it to the front.
Second practice is complete. You see Ben Rhodes, Justin Haley, Johnny Sauter, Brian Doza, and David Gilliland. How about that beautiful picture? Daytona International Speedway, the ocean out in the distance. Absolutely picture perfect. Looked pretty good from Ben Rhodes' position as well. 18 laps and the fastest of the bunch. But how about Brian Doza? Top 5 in both practice sessions.
Very impressive. Jim Rosenblum's got to be ecstatic over there for that 28 truck.
See Noah Gregson leading the second 10 there in his Toyota. Rounded out in the top 20 by Clay Greenfield. Clay's always competitive on the big tracks.
See everybody in those first 2 pages, plus a lot of these capable of winning this race. Said Brett Moffitt back there in 24th. He's going to be a contender.
Looking forward to it. You see the 34 that took at least 1 lap in that second practice session. 32 will make the race tomorrow. Here's a look at that 28 machine, Brian Doza.
See FDNY, NYPD, always on the side of Jim Rosenblum's trucks.
We're not done yet. Race Hub coming up next, followed by final practice for the Camping World Truck Series, and then of course NASCAR Race Day, and then the duel tonight. Looking forward to it. For Michael Waltrip, Phil Parsons, Alan Cavana, I'm Vince Welch. Practice number 2 for the trucks in the books. Now let's go to Charlotte. Check in with John Roberts.
Thank you, Vince. The 2018 Daytona Speed Weeks are now well underway. Welcome to NASCAR Race Hub, presented by Toyota. We are with you for the next hour with the Camping World Truck Series finally seeing the track at Daytona. We'll break down new faces and new places and who to watch in 2018. And the front row for the Daytona 500 is set, but tonight's duel at Daytona will determine the remaining lineup. We talk the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series stars and more. Race Hub starts right now. And welcome into our Charlotte Race Hub studio. I am John Roberts alongside of our crew chief Jeff Hammond, driver Todd Bodine. And year after year, the trucks put on a fantastic show, sometimes the best show of Speed Weeks. And Todd, it looks like they can really drive these trucks this time around.
Well, I tell you, the thing that impressed me in practice, the racetrack's getting wore out. The trucks were moving around, so these guys were having to drive them. They weren't piloting around. There was no aerodynamics weren't holding them. The tires weren't holding them. 6, 7, 8 laps, they started slipping and sliding, getting back to the old Daytona. So tonight, we're going to see a race that the best drivers are going to come to the top.
So across the board, it doesn't matter which series you get into, the racetrack and tires are going to play into it. But what I saw with these trucks right now, we got a lot of young drivers right now that are learning how to kind of dice it up out there real early. And I'm really looking forward to see how this progresses along and can't wait till tomorrow night to see the big show.
You've got a lot of action left in this edition of Speed Weeks, and we're only just getting our engines fired right now as we get ready for Friday night's Camping World Truck Series season opener. Let's take a look at the format. The first 2 stages will be comprised of 20 laps each, and the final 60 laps will make up the final stage. This, of course, does not include any overtime. The trucks will have 1 more practice session. That's following the hub. Tomorrow on FS1, the trucks will qualify with single truck runs, 2 rounds. Coverage starts at 4:30. Then the main event later. Live coverage starts with the Camping World Truck Series race day at 7 Eastern Time. Now, as mentioned earlier, the trucks have been on the track today for 2 practice sessions. Let's go back to Daytona right now, where Hermie Sadler is standing by. Hermie, what did we learn from practice so far?
Well, John, a couple things that really stand out right off the bat is, we had a lot of changes in this series heading into 2018. We had the new NT1 engine that's being introduced. We had some teams like ThorSport changing manufacturers. And the first thing that struck me, John, when I walked in the garage was how good this garage looked. There's a lot of competitive trucks. A lot of the mid-tier teams have really upgraded their equipment. I think we're poised to have potentially the most competitive race we've had here in quite some time, from start to finish, or from the front of the garage to the back. Much, much more competitive looking equipment than we've seen in the last couple of years. And after a couple of practices, John, the couple things that people were maybe concerned about, maybe engine temperature and this new engine, or some of the other things that the teams were worried about, I think it's all worked itself out so far in practice. So I don't really think there are any issues. I think we're setting up for a great race. Now we got one practice left for these teams to either get through, tweak their truck, or you'll see some drivers and teams sitting on jack stands because they do not want to take a chance on tearing that truck up.
Hermie, I thought we'd see a lot out of Brett Moffitt today and then, of course, in the race, but it didn't seem like they had a lot of speed in practice. Is Scott Cipodelli concerned about the lack of speed that truck has had?
Yeah, Todd, that's a great point. Brett Moffitt is a winner in this series, and I think a lot of people are looking at that combination to really surprise some people, but they got off to a bad start. First practice earlier this morning, he was driving onto the racetrack before he even got to the bank, and he spun out, and, they had a flat right rear tire, and that really set them back, cost them some practice time. Then towards the end of practice, they checked the drivetrain, they checked the axles, they checked all that, nothing mechanical. But then after that, as you mentioned, Todd, there's been a continuous search for speed. So the truck is driving okay, but definitely that 16 truck, Toyota, is looking for some more speed in this final practice.
Hermie, what I'm curious about, you mentioned Thor Motorsports, and I've been watching one of their drivers, Grant Enfinger. How's he look so far?
Yeah, Jeff, I really think Grant Enfinger is a good driver and is good for this sport because of how he's gone about doing things. And he and Jeff Hensley had their moments last year. So I think if they can eliminate a few mistakes on the racetrack and on pit road, they could be a real contender. And they got off to a good start here right off the bat, Jeff. In the first practice this morning, that truck in the draft was the fastest truck at the racetrack. Now, he didn't get it in as big a pack in this second practice session, but I think overall, on a scale of 1 to 10 drivability, last time I talked to Grant, he was a 7 to an 8, but obviously a lot of speed. But I think they've got to get a little more comfort in that truck, and Grant knows how to get it done at these racetracks. He's won at Talladega, and he'll certainly be a factor tomorrow night.
Hermie Sadler, thank you very much. Now, don't go away. We'll check back in with you in just a few moments. Now, 2 years ago, the Camping World Truck Series adopted a playoff format similar to the Cup Series. The championship would be decided in a one-race format among 4 drivers at the season finale. Last year, Christopher Bell finished second at Homestead ahead of his championship competitors for his first career NASCAR title. It was a tough battle as every contender, Bell, Johnny Sauter, Austin Cindric, and Matt Crafton all finished inside the top 6 at Homestead. So Christopher Bell has moved to the Xfinity Series, and we'll have more on him a little bit later on. But let's talk about some of the veterans, Todd. You raced against these guys. You know these guys, Matt Crafton and Johnny Sauter. Let's start out with Crafton.
Well, Crafton, he today in the practice, he was so comfortable in the first practice. He got out drafted a little bit that he decided he didn't want to draft the second practice. They did all qualifying stuff. So his experience level has allowed him that comfort knowing what he needs in that truck. And Sauter's the same thing. He got out in the second practice and did some drafting, but what was impressive there is he went to the back of the pack and drove himself right back to the front of the pack. So he's got a fast truck, and their experience is going to help him.
Well, you say experience. I call them the professors. I mean, when you want to know something about a Camping World Truck Series, you look at these 2 veterans here, both of them former champions. They understand, I think, better than anybody else. We always talk about certain drivers seeing the air. When it comes to these types of races, you got to watch these 2 guys. I mean, they will snooker you in a heartbeat. The next thing you know, they'll be sitting in victory lane, and you'll wonder what happened.
Yeah, they're not old guys. They're wily veterans.
Exactly.
They've been around long enough to know. Now, the last 2 years have produced a championship and a runner-up finish for Johnny Sauter. Right now, let's go to Daytona, where Hermie Sadler is standing by with the former series champ. Hermie?
Well, Johnny Sauter, a former champion in this series, got a couple wins from this racetrack as well. But you come in here, new engine package, new season, handicap your chances after you run a couple practices in this Chevy.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm proud of everybody at GMS. Our Legion Travel Chevy was good. Made a heck of a run there in that one draft. It was only 11 trucks, but I'm sweating a little bit. It doesn't get this hot in Wisconsin until July. But anyway, yeah, I feel really good about it. Obviously, this race is a survival race like it always is. You know, you got to be there at the end if you even have a chance. So it's easier said than done sometimes, as you know. But, yeah, I feel really good about it. The NT1 engine was running really good. But tomorrow's a whole different ball game when you get 32 of us out in the pack versus 10 or 12, whatever the case is. So we'll just go to school. But felt really good, felt stable, and felt like I could make some pretty bold moves and felt good about it.
2-time winner, as we mentioned, with the playoff system that we have. it means even more to win here or early in the season. So is there a key to winning this race? Or what kind of how do you use your experience to try to get that done again?
Well, I think there is. Obviously I think we're all going to school a little bit tomorrow with the new engine package. I don't know that the draft is going to be exactly like it's been in the past. I think it still remains to be seen a little bit, but you can only study so much. You can only watch, so many old races, use experience. The key deal is survival, and track position is always important here, getting more important every year it seems like. So I think it's important to have good pit strategy, try to stay up front, stay out of the mess if you can, even though that didn't work for us last year. But, you got to be a little bit lucky. And, we're doing our best effort we can down here, and if it works out, it works out.
Well, John, that's Johnny Sauter. I guarantee you, if you win this race at Daytona, you're going to have to outrun this guy.
Yeah, Hermie, he knows you got to be a little bit lucky as well. We're going to have more Camping World Truck Series coverage later on in the show. Here's a reminder that Fox Sports is the exclusive home to Camping World Truck Series racing. You will see the season opener tomorrow night. Live coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on FS1. Right now, let's shift our attention to the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series. We'll get you caught up with today's daily fuel. In Sunday's clash at Daytona, Brad Keselowski lined up last for the start, but drove through the field, leading 43 of the 75 laps en route to his first win at the annual Cup Series exhibition race. In fact, it was his first win ever at Speed Weeks. We'll have more on the clash a little bit later. Now, also on Sunday, the front row for the Daytona 500 was decided. It was Alex Bowman driving the Hendrick 88 car for the recently retired Dale Earnhardt Jr., who just edged out Denny Hamlin for the pole. No doubt the biggest pole award in Bowman's career. So only the front row is set for the 500. The rest of the lineup is determined by tonight's duel. So, guys, what do you expect to see? Jeff, what's your goal when you're driving out here tonight?
Well, survive, number one. But to me, the early part of this week, especially yesterday during media day, I heard a lot of, yes, we can win the championship. Yes, my car is great. Yes, this. Everything was just, happy-go-lucky. And to me, that's a fantasy world. Todd, tonight, reality's getting ready to hit these guys right square between the eyes because, man, let's face it, they hadn't done any practicing, and we got a lot of unknowns.
This reality is about to set in. These guys haven't been in these cars since their qualifying laps, and tonight is about figuring your car out for the 500. Which way it's going to go. Is it going to get pushy? Is it going to get loose? How's it drive behind other cars? How's the track going to go? What kind of grip you're going to have? How do the tires fall? These drivers are going to get an education tonight to help their crew chiefs determine what kind of changes they need to make in their setup so that in the 500, they're good in the long run on these old tires. Because we know in the 500, the guy that has the best car on old tires is going to win the race.
Hey, real quick, you know what? It may be a little confusing, though. We're running at night, and the 500's in the daytime.
Yeah, exactly.
So throw that wrench in there.
Education and experimentation might be the key. And reality, too, as well. Now, later today, NASCAR Race Day will have full pre-race coverage of the duels. That starts at 5:30. Kevin Harvick is a former duel and Daytona 500 winner, and he had the pleasure of sitting down with Kenny Wallace for an in-depth chat. You can see the entire interview on Race Day, but here's a preview.
I used to latch on to everything. I used to latch on to everything that everybody said, everything that I did, everything that somebody did to me, and you tried to retaliate, you tried to respond, and could you imagine responding to every person on
Harvard,
Twitter?
I think that's mean your age because now people can talk crap about me and you on Twitter. We don't even respond anymore.
I laugh. I'm like, dang, I'm glad they're talking about me.
I love it.
That's Race Day tonight at 5:30 Eastern Time. Now, Jeff, Kevin Harvick is always dangerous when he's behind the wheel of a race car to the other competitors. When he's happy, calm, and confident, well, he's even more dangerous.
Well, I think, they kind of touched on it, some of the things in the transformation or the growing up of Kevin Harvick. I've been watching him throughout the start of his career, and this man is really smart, not only on the racetrack, but away from the racetrack. And I think right now he has the ability to, when he looks out that front windshield, he sees more than a lot of race car drivers. He knows how to pick his way through, and Todd, he didn't get called the closer for nothing. He knows how to stay back out of the way, and when it comes time to show me the money, he's there to go get some.
I think that's his experience showing right there. But the one thing that I like about Kevin right now is he seems like he's in a great place. Happy Harvick is his name, which we never thought that was the right nickname for him, but it fits now. And I really think that having a son, having Keelan, has changed his attitude. And he realizes there's a lot more to life than just racing cars and getting mad about it, because he goes home and he plays with Keelan and he has fun. So it's great to see him in a good place right now.
Yes, right now we are dealing with a much happier Harvick. And all the other race car drivers have to deal with a much happier Harvick, and that's all the more difficult.
He's still dangerous.
For Todd Gilliland, it's the opportunity every young driver strives for. He'll be driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Camping World Truck Series in a truck that won the title last year. We'll talk to Todd later in the show. But next, we got our first look at the 5-man pit stop earlier this week in the Clash. How will teams adjust going forward? We'll break it down when the hub rolls on. Hub presented by Toyota. There you see a bird's eye view of the scene for the Great American Race, the Daytona International Speedway. Kyle Busch is very busy on a weekend like this. Not only is he a driver, but also right now putting on his team owner's cap and taking a look at his trucks on the racetrack. Now, 17 drivers were fortunate enough to get race-like experience last Sunday in the Cup Series exhibition event, the Clash at Daytona. Now, as we mentioned earlier, it was Brad Keselowski who scored not only his first Clash win, but also his first win at Speed Weeks. Here's how it played out. It's race in 90.
We are excited to see the first NASCAR checkered flag, green flag and checkered flag of this Daytona Speed Weeks. It's one of those races, it's a short race. You never know until that checkered flag waves who's going to end up in victory lane.
And this race today could be your first step toward winning the biggest race in the world, the Daytona 500.
Green flag, and we are racing at Daytona in the Clash. Well, Brad Keselowski did it. He went from last to first, but now he's got his nose in the wind. Oh, Jamie McMurray. Trouble in the wall.
Just barely clips that left rear quarter. That's all it takes, really, to get the car turning around.
Oh, Stenhouse.
That yellow line. So right there, the 18 of Kyle Busch tried to help out Martin Truex Jr., but that gave the momentum to 17 to Stenhouse Jr., but did he go underneath that yellow line to make that pass?
And they are going to make the 17 of Stenhouse take a penalty stop. Oh, Johnson gets turned!
Again.
Kyle Busch into Larson into Johnson. And for what, the 7th year in a row, Jimmy Johnson will crash out of the Clash. Checkered flag. Brad Keselowski, from last to first, wins the Clash at Daytona.
So Brad Keselowski struck the first blow on the racetrack by getting that victory. But Sunday was also our first look at competitive pit stops with the one less man going over the wall. Todd, we got 5, but we've seen this before, haven't we?
Well, I think there's a lot to do about nothing here. You know, back in 1989, when I was changing tires, we only had 5 guys. Here's one from 89, 5 guys. Now, you got to get rid of the pit sign guy. We've got a sign on a stick now for that. The guy at the back of the car catching the gas, we have self-venting gas cans now, so we don't need him. The guy cleaning the windshield, we don't use that guy anymore. We have tear-offs. So the main focus was the 5 guys changing the tires.
Which one of the 5 guys was you, Todd?
I was the right front guy.
The right front tire
I changed the right front tires. I used to be pretty good at it, too.
And they also didn't have helmets back then.
He was a jack man, so he knows the whole story.
I do remember him back in the day when he used to do that. But, you know, he was a good tire changer, but you might have been a better race car driver.
Well, I appreciate that.
So you stuck with the pit crew
I stuck with the pit crew. But, you know, the thing is, this year, with what NASCAR is trying to accomplish, is number one, is try to save a little bit of money. And I think Sunday, you know, we got a little bit of an understanding of what's going on. We're taking a look here at the 31 car, Ryan Newman. They come in, you see the guy that's carrying the tire at the back. That's kind of like normal. But all of a sudden, if you'll notice, when they came around the car, the right front tire changer was actually carrying his own tire. But watch here, folks, when the jack man gets done, all of a sudden he becomes the tire hanger. He puts it in. But here's what the interesting part is. Now the left front tire changer gets up, he drops the jack. So they've got a routine here where there's almost like 3 different people touch the jack during the course of the pit stop, and people are changing positions. Back in the day, you never changed positions. You just did your thing, and that's it. I mean, that's the main thing. But the other thing that's interesting is how much this one change, you said, has much to do about nothing. Look how much it slowed these teams down. Last year, Chase Elliott's guys, they did a stop in 11.8 seconds. This year, the fastest stop in that class, Jimmy Johnson, 16.6. That is a slow pit stop by
5 seconds.
Our normal standards.
Well, but back in the day, in 1989, we were only a second off of that. Ours were about 17 and a half, and we did it with 5 guys. So my point is,
they had athletes today.
Well, they have athletes, and they have better tools.
Better
we
tools,
didn't have good tools.
quicker jacks, everything.
Yeah. So these guys got it made. I don't know what they're complaining about.
It's a little bit of history repeating itself.
As I like to tell a driver, shut up, drive. This time you tell the pit crew, shut up and change my tires.
Yeah, true. A little role reversal here. All right, we'll see how the teams adjust in their pit stops in tonight's duel. The duel can be seen live on FS1, starting with pre-race coverage on race day at 5:30. And don't forget, immediately following this edition of Race Hub is the Camping World Truck Series final practice. Time for a Toyota team update. 2017 was a banner year for the Toyota camp. Martin Truex Jr. scored his 8th win of the season at the Homestead finale, which also secured him his first series title. Runner-up in the standings was Kyle Busch, who drives for the Toyota-powered Joe Gibbs Racing team. And let's take a look at the Gibbs Racing lineup for 2018. It was Kyle Busch who scored the first Cup Series title for Toyota in 2015. He returns in the 18 car. Also back at Gibbs is Denny Hamlin and Daniel Suarez. The new face in the stable is Eric Jones. Now, Jones was a Toyota driver last year, but he'll be coming over from Furniture Row Racing. The current series champion, Martin Truex Jr., will once again be driving in a single-car team situation. Todd, let's start out with Joe Gibbs Racing. What do you expect from them this season?
I don't think we should expect anything less than what we've always gotten. Denny and Kyle, they're going to be running up front and fast every week, and I think Daniel has really come a long way. His driving these cars, understanding these cars is a lot different than the trucks in Xfinity, and I think he's come along with it. But I'm really excited about Eric Jones. He did really well last year over at Furniture Row, coming back to JGR in a great car with a lot of experience. I think this kid is definitely the future of JGR, and he's going to be tough. He's going to win some races this year.
Yeah, and Jeff, now that means with the 77 gone away and Eric Jones with Toyota. Now, granted, they have a pretty close alliance. Martin Truex Jr. once again is technically a single-car team. Do you think it matters?
Absolutely not, because you go back and look at 2016, they were doing great there as a single-car team. They should have slowed down in 2017 when they added the second one. They did not. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of changes in the 78 car. You just better beware. They could be going for 2 in a row.
Yes, they could be, and they're going to be hard to beat no matter what you're racing on. Now, more news from the Toyota camp. Christopher Bell, who drove a Tundra in the Truck Series for Kyle Busch Motorsports last year, will be driving full-time in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing this year. He will be paired with Matt Kenseth's former crew chief, Jason Ratcliffe. The Xfinity Series will practice for the first time tomorrow morning with their Daytona race on Saturday at 2:30. There's still time to join the action at the track this weekend. Head to Daytona500.com or call 1-800-PIT-SHOP to purchase tickets for the Power Shares Triple Q 300. Well, the NASCAR offseason is a short one, but a lot can change over the winter. We'll look at new faces and new places in the Camping World Truck Series. That is coming up later. But next, it was 20 years ago that Dale Earnhardt got his long-awaited win at the Great American Race. A look back at one of NASCAR's most historic days when the hub rolls. Presented by Toyota. This Sunday will mark the 20th anniversary of Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s first and only win at the Great American Race. Here's a look back at that historic day.
Trouble coming off of turn 2. Blake Speed and John Andretti tangle as the leaders head for turn number 3. Andretti and Spencer got together. Labonte up high. Earnhardt uses the left car of Rick Mast as a pick. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come with a caution flag to win the Daytona 500. The most anticipated moment in racing. If John Elway can win the Super Bowl, Dale Earnhardt said he could win the Daytona 500. Checkered flag. Dale Earnhardt finally is a champion of the Daytona 500. The taste of long-awaited victory will be his.
Make the strongest man on earth cry when you win this race. It's special.
Well, there were fans that loved him when he was racing. There were fans that hated him when he was racing. But no matter what side of the fence you were on, Todd, chances are you'll never forget that day.
No, absolutely. I think that was absolutely probably the most popular win that we've ever had in NASCAR. It didn't matter if you were a Dale fan or not, if you were on his team or not. You were glad to see him finally get that one. That was the one he needed.
Yeah, I mean, his career would have been incomplete if he hadn't, but the main thing is right now he's got the utmost respect from all the crews. But I think what's amazing is when you look back to Victory Lane, is who was in Victory Lane that day. Those two kids to the left of Dale right there, that's Ty and Austin Dillon, and to the right there is Taylor, his daughter. They were only 7 years old at that time. So it's just kind of amazing that they were there, and right now Austin is saying, I'm going to take the 3-car back. It's been 20 years since it's been to Victory Lane Daytona. I guess I'm going to take it back here this year.
Yeah, now what about the teammate, the veteran, Ryan Newman? He showed he could win last year, and he's still got a lot of good racing left in him, Todd.
Oh, absolutely. He can still get it done. I think Ryan has to step up a little bit and take that veteran role. Even though nobody wants to admit they're the old guy on the block, he's got to take that veteran role and step into it and lead RCR and help Austin and the team. Be that rock there every week.
And don't forget, Andy Petrie's been added to the RCR. I think he'll be the kind of guy that'll help nudge him along and get that out of him right now. Those two right there may help get this team back where it belongs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes teams get better with more cars. Sometimes teams get better with fewer cars, and they have powered down by one. Now, Richard Childress Racing is one of the most successful teams in the history of NASCAR, but after a slump that lasted several seasons, that organization has found its way back to victory lane. For a closer look at RCR, here's Chris Myers.
2017 was a year of redemption for Richard Childress Racing. After 3 full seasons without a win, the legendary organization made not one, but 2 trips to victory lane.
We just won our first cup race. Woo-hoo! Hell of a job there, Ryan Newman. It's a long time coming.
Ryan Newman's triumph at Phoenix saw crew chief Luke Lambert make a daring call to keep the 31 car out front late in the day. Rocket Man held on to claim his first victory since 2013 and his first win in 4 seasons with RCR.
And the 3-car has returned to victory lane in NASCAR's Top Series.
Austin Dillon matched his veteran teammate with a sentimental win in NASCAR's longest race. A gamble on fuel by Justin Alexander saw Richard Childress' grandson claim his maiden victory in the Cup Series and also return that famed black number 3 to the winner's circle for the first time in 17 years.
You have to push through it. You have to be persistent. Keep on hitting back. And we did that.
Both drivers remain with their respective crew chiefs from a season ago and look to accelerate last season's success through 2018.
Let's take a look at how the RCR drivers measure up at the Daytona 500 according to the numbers. Austin Dillon has made 5 starts with 2 top 10 finishes and 9 laps led. Ryan Newman has made 16 starts in the Great American Race. He does have a 500 win on his resume. That win came 10 years ago in 2008, but the series veteran does know how to manage 500 miles at Daytona. With that, let's play a fantasy Daytona 500 with help from DraftKings. DraftKings is the official one-day fantasy sports partner of NASCAR, and this weekend they're offering a completely free $10,000 contest for Sunday's Great American Race. Just sign up and use the promo code PITSTOP shown at the bottom of your screen to play for free. In a moment, Jeff Hammond is going to draft a team, but first, here's a quick explanation on how to get in on the racing action.
Race day is back on DraftKings, the official one-day fantasy sports partner of NASCAR. To celebrate, play a free $10,000 fantasy contest for Daytona. Completely free, no deposit required. Download the DraftKings app and sign up using promo code PITSTOP. Choose NASCAR as your sport, find the free $10,000 contest in the lobby, and start your chase towards victory lane. Celebrate Daytona and the return of NASCAR with DraftKings' free $10,000 fantasy contest. DraftKings, the game inside the game.
The countdown to Sunday is on, so don't forget to download the DraftKings app and sign up using promo code PITSTOP to play for free. There are tons of games to play, even a contest with $600,000 in prizes this weekend. Make sure to use promo code PITSTOP when you sign up. So right now, we're going to put Jeff Hammond on the spot. Jeff, you got to pick your drivers, but you got to stay within your budget.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a big challenge right there, but I love doing that. And I think still we got some good contenders up here.
These are your most expensive drivers to start.
Yeah, when you take a look, Brad Keselowski, top of that bit list. Not surprising because he won on Sunday, but Chase Elliott, that is a little bit of surprise. But, you know, really, I want I got my eye on what I want to start on right on the get-go. Believe it or not.
Which guys you like?
I'm going to start with Kevin Harvick. I was looking at his numbers. I believe this is a really good value buy when you take a look at the fact, number one, he's driving a Ford. Fords are strong. He's won at Daytona. So, I mean, when you really think about his overall stats, thank you right now. Top 5s, he's got 6. Top 10s, lap sled at Daytona. This man is called the closer for the right reason. I'm telling you right now, he knows how to get it done.
So you may got a bargain on him at $990 or $9,900. What do you got next?
Well, you're not going to believe this. Can you believe our defending champion?
I can believe
it's
it.
Still available at a really reasonable rate of $9,500. And you got to remember, he finished second a year ago.
Okay, so who's your next guy?
Oh, right now, this is somebody that a lot of people will say, why are you going with this guy? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He got woke up last year, especially when it comes to super speedway racing and restrictor plate. He has been able to get the job done. And last year, in 4 starts, he got 2 wins, 2 top 10s, led 37 laps. But the thing about him is that this young man, he loves going fast. He doesn't mind threading the needle. So I think he's a really good choice.
Yeah, again, no reason why he's not a good bargain at $8,900. Okay, you got 3 left.
This might be a little bit of a surprise for some folks. Not for me. How about Ryan Blaney? Another Ford. I got 3 up there right now. I like the Ford Continuous if you can't figure that out. But more importantly, he finished second a year ago in the Daytona 500. And driving for Roger Penske, I really believe this young man's confidence is about as high as you can get it. He could wind up being a dark horse come Sunday.
Yeah, perhaps another bargain. You got 2 drivers left, Jeff.
Yep. Help me out over there. Will you mind pushing that button for the number 1?
For the number
Jamie
1.
McMurray?
I thought you might be going there.
Yes, sir. Jamie McMurray won a Daytona 500. But the more important thing is he is probably one of the more, I guess you might say, under the radar type of guys. He's always going to be up there. He's always going to be attacking. He's going to be trying to get to that front, try to lead some laps, get up there and make a lot of noise. This guy is, once again, probably one of my dark horses when it gets to the end of the deal.
Yeah, won the 500, won at Talladega as well, so he's a good plate racer, but you got one more slot.
Well, there's one more slot. You got to get the balance out to get the total, $50,000 out. This is what you have to do sometimes is look where your best buy may be. It's right at the end. It's going to be David Gilliland and that number 92 car. And a lot of people may not realize this. He is a pretty good plate racer.
Absolutely.
Finished 3rd here in the Daytona 500 in 2011. He's running a Camping World Truck race tomorrow night here on Fox. So to me, he is one of those guys you need to fill in your field. He could wind up making you some money.
And remember, if you fire your engine, you have a chance to win this thing. A lot of strange things happen. Jeff, thank you very much. Looks like you got a good squad there. Sunday is the big day. Fox is the exclusive home for the Great American Race. Coverage of the 2018 Daytona 500 starts with race day at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by the race at 1 p.m. only on Fox. Got a lot more action coming your way. We'll get back to the trucks when we come back to the Hub. Presented by Toyota. Time to take a look back now at a very busy day for the Camping World Truck Series as they have 3 practice sessions, 2 down, 1 to go. Let's take a look at practice number 1 and guys fastest 98 truck of Grant Enfinger.
I mean, he's a former truck winner. He's won here at Daytona, the ARCA race, and right now, Todd, to me, I think him and his teammate can get hooked up. They may be hard to handle come tomorrow night.
Grant knows what he's doing for sure, and those guys at ThorSport have done a great job, and Ben Rhodes is back in there. A different number this year, but it's the same team with Eddie Traconis as a crew chief. He's going to be tough, and you're right, Jeff. I think we're going to see some of these teammates hooking up and getting in the line and trying to help each other.
And he was the fastest in practice number 2, Todd. Still another one yet to go there with some more drivers hoping to pick up on the speed a little bit. But when you look at this field, you look at so many different faces in different places. That's the fact of the matter in the truck series. And Hermie told us earlier today that it might be the most competitive field ever. Who are you taking a look at, Todd?
Man, I'm going to tell you, it is a competitive field. It's hard to pick one guy. We watch both those practices, and there was guys up front that aren't usually up there. Some of the guys that are normally in the back, I think this Ilmor motor is really tightening this field up. I think that
it's a common engine for the whole field.
It's a common engine. It's a spec motor. And I think some of these guys that used to race in the back have bought these motors, and now they've got horsepower, and all of a sudden they can run up front. So it's going to be fun to watch that.
It will be fun to watch. And one of the ones we were looking early at practice today out there, John Hunter Nemechek, had a great year last year. Looked like he had a legitimate shot, maybe making a run for the championship. championship. But now he's got some pretty decent funding with Chip Ganassi Racing. So I'm really curious to see how this young man's going to do this year. I keep waiting for him to have that breakout year.
Yeah. So certainly he's got the backing and also got a lot of work on his plate with driving for that Ganassi program.
Yeah, I think, we know John Hunter's fast, okay? He can go fast. And I think what he's going to get out of his system is that go-get-him attitude to get up on the wheel. He's going to have to pull the reins back just a little bit in the Xfinity Series with Ganassi. And I think when he figures that out, he's going to go back to the front, and he's going to be up front every week. He's a really good driver.
So we talked a lot about the change in the series so far this year, but right now Hermie Sadler is standing by with the driver who's in the same place with the same crew chief, hoping for a little bit better results. Hermie?
Well, John, Justin Haley and his team showed a lot of speed in practice number two. Number two on the speed chart. Now, you didn't get to race this race last year, but you got some experience at Talladega. So how will that experience help you get done where you need to get done tomorrow night?
Correct. Obviously we brought a really fast Fraternal Order Eagles GMS Chevrolet here. Got the new Elmore power underneath. So we're trying to work out some issues there, but they're definitely really, really fast. But, Talladega was good to me last year. We ran up front all night and then, got caught up in a late wreck. And just using what I learned then, I'm a lot more comfortable in the draft here this year. So had Ben Rhodes help me, obviously work together on that fast lap. So that should put us in a pretty good spot for qualifying tomorrow towards the later end of the pack. So just looking forward to the race.
Got a nice mix of veterans and young drivers trying to get experience. This guy showed a lot of promise last year on super speedways and everything in between. He'll be strong tomorrow night, John.
Hermie Sadler, thanks a lot. We appreciate that, and we'll be back with Hermie in just a moment. Now, if you're in the market for car parts, the widest selection of parts have never been easier to shop. Check out eBay Motors to find the right part for your ride. And also, when we come back, racing has always been a family affair. We've got the Racing Gillilands coming to join us as we count down to final practice at Daytona. There they are. Welcome back, everyone, to NASCAR Race Hub presented by Toyota. Yet another beautiful day for racing as Speed Weeks roll on in Daytona at the big track by the beach. The Camping World Truck Series teams are getting ready for their final practice session at Daytona. That's coming up after Race Hub. Teams had 2 practice sessions earlier today. Let's go to the track for more from the broadcast team, Vince Welch, Michael Waltrip, and Phil Parsons. Vince?
Thank you, John. Certainly the guys from ThorSport got to feel good about the way things have shaken out the first couple of practices. Grant Enfinger fastest in practice 1, Ben Rhodes fastest in practice 2. And I know at the restrictor plate tracks we're not spending so much time focusing on the speed chart, but still impressive for that team after the switch over to Ford. What else has been a takeaway for you, Mike, here in this first 2 practices?
Vince, I just loved the pack drafting we saw. These trucks are a little bit jiggy. You get down in the traffic, the thing will move around on you. We saw guys, inexperienced rookies, mixing it up with the veterans. Everybody just trying to fill out their trucks, understand exactly what they're going to have when you get in a pack. You can see the 2 truck there, Cody Coughlin, moving around a little bit. You have to adjust that, work on that. You don't want to knock any speed out of these trucks, Vince, but you got to get them handling well.
We also saw Johnny Sauter, our champion from a couple years ago, move to the back of the pack and then drive his way to the front of the pack. So they have a new engine here, the NT1, but I don't think you look at the racetrack and you don't say, well, that's that NT1, because the racing is the same here. The guys with a good truck can go to the back and make their way back to the front. That's going to be a great recipe for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think that certainly gives us something to look forward to tomorrow evening when the race starts. How about the kind of the new faces in new places and just even some new faces that are here for the first time in the Truck Series?
You're talking about new. We have to talk about Spencer Davis. He was 7th in the 2nd practice session today. This is his first truck start. And by the way, it's the first start he's ever had at Daytona. Talk about nerves. That kid's fighting those right now.
Yeah, Michael, I want to talk to a guy that's actually not even here. This is Todd Gilliland. We saw this just the other night at New Smyrna. What a great battle he had with Harrison Burton, who's actually a teammate of his at KBM. Todd Gilliland not old enough to run this race here, but why not put his dad in there, David Gillen, who's got so much success here, so many top 5 finishes at Daytona, Talladega. That's him in that Ford truck. He said he was just keeping the seat warm for Todd later in the year when Todd turns 18. Then he'll be able to run all these races. But right there's Todd up there watching the truck and learning, because he knows he'll be in that truck at Talladega with a racetrack very similar to this one here at Daytona.
Yeah, so doesn't get the laps, but still gaining some experience by being in on the debriefs with the team and just being here and soaking up that experience. I think it's going to be helpful for him down the road, John.
Vince, thank you very much. And guys, thank you as well. You know, when you look at some of these younger drivers, it's such a great mix in this series between the veterans and the serious veterans and the young drivers. One young driver, name you're going to hear a lot this year is Myatt Snyder.
I tell you, I really like Myatt. We've watched him race the ARCA series and win races and run up front, consistent. Last year, he ran some truck races with KBM. He got some good experience. He didn't do really well. He didn't run up front every race, but he got good experience. He learned a lot. Coming into the season, he's switched teams. He's gone over to Thor Sport, and he's with a good team, the 13 truck. And I think that we're going to see a lot out of this kid this year. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He'll be at the front winning some races.
And, Jeff, what about the Racing Gillilands?
Well, I mean, I think what you're sitting there is you're seeing how everything is doing this, you might say, continuation of a legacy because, you know, David Gilliland was a really great driver. He drove for Robert Yates Racing. He's finished third at Daytona in a big race in the 500. He knows what's going on. I think he has groomed his son to keep right on trucking right along. I don't no play on words there, but the fact that he can't run this race because he's not 18 years of age, I mean, it's a little bit of a crying shame, but I think it's going to help in his maturity, and we've seen it where it's really helped develop kids later on by making them wait a little bit. So he is just a star getting ready to burst on the scene.
Well, you talk about generational. Let's not forget about grandfather Butch.
Oh, that's right.
Man, what an incredible racer on the West Coast.
Right.
Won a lot of races. So Todd's third generation, and it definitely is in his blood.
So you better watch out for some of these NASCAR stars of the future. There's a great place to find them is in the Camping World Truck Series. So right now, let's find out what the Racing Gillilands have to say. They are standing by with the younger and the older one is Hermie Sadler. Hermie?
Well, John, we got double fun right here. We got both the Gillilands, David and Todd. We'll get to Todd in a moment, but David, getting an opportunity to drive a truck like this at Daytona got to be a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, I haven't been able to quit smiling. I'm super excited. Toyota and KBM and Pedigree, you know, for this opportunity to drive such a fast Toyota Tundra has been, it's a dream come true. It's a lot of fun. It's super special to be able to drive the 4 KBM truck, you know, before that Todd's going to be driving. So that's probably the most special thing I've probably done yet in racing.
Well, Todd's got to watch a couple races. He'll get behind the wheel starting at Martinsville, and I know it's got to be. I know you want to be in the truck, but if you got to watch somebody drive your truck, how special it's going to be to watch your dad, and he could win this race.
Yeah, he could definitely win this race. You know, he's got a lot of speed, and everyone's been working really hard at KBM, and like you said, I can't thank Pedigree and Toyota for putting him in here, and he's been my teacher the last 2 years, and now to be able to watch him on the racetrack and learn even more is going to be a very special opportunity.
And you better be watching too, because at Talladega coming up, it may be Gilliland versus Gilliland, so y'all help each other, but it's going to be bragging rights on the line when y'all get to Talladega.
Yeah, this weekend I'm learning what I can do to beat him next time at Talladega. So it's going to be on there, but right now, you know, I'm cheering for him, and you know, we'll see how he does.
That's Todd Gilliland. This is David Gilliland. He'll be in the 4 tomorrow night.
It's just very rare in professional sports, Hermie, that a father can compete against a son, but you can see that in NASCAR. Here's a programming reminder for today. Immediately following Race Hub, you will see Camping World Truck Series final practice. Then NASCAR Race Day gets you ready for the Cup Series duel at Daytona at 5:30, followed by the race. Got more Race Hub coming your way from Daytona. We'll take a look at some of the more rising stars of NASCAR that you will see in the Truck Series. Final practice is coming up. Welcome back to NASCAR Race Hub, presented by Toyota. A little bit of cosmetic damage on the front of the 88 truck, but they're just making everything pretty because no one really wrecked anything up yet so far, and that's a really good sign. Now, after last year's successful drivers broadcast of the June Xfinity Pocono race on Fox, we're doing it again. Announced just moments ago at Daytona, the Fox Sports Xfinity Series broadcast team will be replaced by Monster Energy Cup Series drivers at Talladega. Here are the drivers who will be calling the Xfinity race at the big track Saturday, April 28th. Kevin Harvick will handle the play-by-play with help in the booth from Clint Boyer and Joey Logano. On pit road will be Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, and Darrell Wallace Jr. And in the Hollywood Hotel, it will be Brad Keselowski with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You don't want to miss that. And the final practice for the trucks is now just moments away. Let's check in with Hermie Sadler one more time. Hermie, tell us what to watch for next.
Well, John, one more practice prior to qualifying tomorrow for the Truck Series here at Daytona. Now, most trucks are done. They're going to stay in the garage, not take that chance on tearing up a truck in final practice. A couple teams I talked to will take advantage of the last practice to just work on pit road speed, getting the driver on pit road and off pit road while maximizing the speed but not losing positions going on and off pit road. And a couple trucks, namely the 18, the 51, and the 16, they're all three concerned about their speed, and ironically, those are the three trucks that do not have the NT1 engine, so they feel like they got to find some more speed in practice 3 to be competitive tomorrow night.
Hermie, thank you very much. A lot of talk about engines this time around. Todd, explain to us a little bit about what's going on with sometimes you call them crate motors, spec motors, whatever, but straighten that out for us.
Well, this year in the Truck Series, they don't have to run a manufacturer-specific motor, a Toyota, a Ford, or a Chevy. They have what's called an Ilmor motor, which is a spec motor. Ilmor Engineering has built. We've seen it run in the ARCA series for the past few years. That's an optional motor. You can run this motor, and the advantage to run this motor, it's a lot cheaper. It's cheaper to buy to begin with, and you don't have to rebuild it as often. A built motor you have to rebuild about every 2 races, and Ilmor motor is every 6 races, so that becomes cheaper. So it's really going to change this series and the cost for these guys. But today, what's been interesting for me to watch is how well this motor has performed. And we just heard Hermie say it. I think that the built motors might have a disadvantage going into this race. That Ilmor motor, we watched a couple of those guys, they got a little draft and they did the old slingshot. And we haven't seen that in a long time. And they pulled up, pulled out, and kept going and made the pass. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this tomorrow night.
You know, the thing also that, Hermie was touching on was these guys working on making pit stops. Pit stops, are going to be interesting because I think the way the stages are set at 20, 20, and that final stage being 60, look for a green flag stop.
For Camping World Truck Series final practice, let's head back to Daytona and check back in with Vince Welch.